Rising star Tae-joon stood at the top of the podium in Paris for the men's under 58-kilogram taekwondo event, marking the first title for South Korea in that weight class. The nation's state-run think tank revised down South Korea's growth outlook for this year by 0.1 percentage point to 2.5%, citing weaker demand at home. Russia says Ukrainian troops have crossed into the border region of Kursk and launched an attack, marking the biggest incursion since the war began. It's August 8th, 6 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We start in Paris, where Korea's Tae-joon clinched a historic gold medal in the men's taekwondo flyweight division. Lee Seung-jae covers this match and more.
Taekwondo is Korea's traditional martial art. It's an event the country long dominated in the past. But for 16 years, the South Koreans failed to win a gold medal in the sport at the Olympics. That all changed on Wednesday when Tae-joon claimed the top podium spot in the men's under 58-kilogram competition. On the first day of Taekwondo competitions in Paris, Pak took a commanding lead in the final, winning the opening round 9-0 and the second round 13-1 against Gashim Magomedov of Azerbaijan. However, Magomedov withdrew due to injury with a little more than a minute left, giving Pak the gold medal and the country's first ever top finish in the weight class. The gold medal for Pak also gave South Korea their 12th gold in Paris, one shy of tying with its previous best. Over in the men's high jump event, South Korea's flag bearer and high jumper Woo Sang-hyuk cruised through in the qualification round to advance to the final. With the top 12 out of 31 jumpers qualifying for the final, Woo tied for third after clearing 2.27 meters. Woo has been one of the top jumpers in the world during the past 3 years, finishing fourth at the Tokyo Games. And another Woo qualified for the finals, this time Woo Haram in the men's 3-meter springboard event on Wednesday. The South Korean, who's considered a medal hopeful in the competition, finished 9th out of 18 divers in the semifinals with 432 points. Woo is hoping to better his 4th place finish in Tokyo with a place on the podium. And speaking of a podium finish, the South Korean women's table tennis team is now one win away from clinching a spot in the finals and a shot at a podium finish. But the trio of Shin Yu-bin, Chun Ji-hee, and Lee Eun-hae have the tough task of facing off against the top-ranked China on Thursday. A medal in the competition would mean the country's first in team competition in 16 years. Meanwhile, South Korea currently has 12 gold, 8 silver, and 7 bronze medals in Paris, and still have a shot of adding more to the tally. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korea's economic think tank has slightly cut its 2024 growth outlook for the country to 2.5%, citing weaker demand at home. Kim Beom-soo tells us more.
Weak domestic demand constraining on export-led recovery. That is how a major state-run think tank, the Korea Development Institute, evaluated South Korea's economy, while revising down the country's economic growth outlook. The KDI cut this year's economic growth forecast to 2.5% on Thursday, marking a 0.1 percentage point fall from its earlier projection presented in May. The outlook is on par with those by the International Monetary Fund and Bank of Korea, and is lower than those made by South Korean government and the OECD, which forecast a 2.6% growth. Primarily fueled by semiconductors, exports are forecast to grow at a faster clip, with the institute jacking up the export growth forecast this year from 5.6% to 7%. It shared a rather grim outlook, however, for consumer spending and equipment investment, revising the consumption down to 1.5% from its earlier forecast of 1.8%, and cutting its projection for facility investment to 0.4% from the previous 2.2%.
The growth of domestic demand centered on private consumption and facility investment is expected to fall short of earlier projections. Considering the prolonged trend of high interest rates compared to consumer prices and economic conditions, the recovery of domestic demand is likely to be delayed.
Due to weak domestic demand and falling global oil prices due to potential slowdown in the U.S. and China, consumer prices are forecast to climb 2.4% this year, which is 0.2 percentage points lower than in the forecast in May. The think tank also cited external factors, such as geopolitical risks in the Middle East or a sharp economic downturn in China or the U.S., as potential risks that could slow South Korea's economic growth. Kim Beom-soo, Arirang News.
In the U.S., stocks on Wall Street closed lower on Wednesday as the market struggled to stage a comeback amid lingering uncertainty among investors. Our finance correspondent Moon Hae-ryun has the latest.
Major U.S. stock indexes closed lower on Wednesday, failing to recover fully from the big sell-offs on Monday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed 0.6% lower, and the S&P 500 shed nearly 0.8%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq dropped by more than 1%. Throughout the trading session, the three indexes saw morning gains as the Bank of Japan commented that the central bank would not raise rates when financial markets are unstable, boosting market sentiment. Trade involving the Japanese yen has been a key factor in the sequence of events leading to global market volatility, as investors borrow the cheaper yen to trade into stocks and other assets. But with Japan's central bank raising its benchmark interest rate at the end of last month, paired with weak U.S. economic data stoking fears of a recession in the world's biggest economy, investors have been quick to sell. While investor sentiment is slowly leveling out, with Wall Street's losses on Wednesday not as drastic as those seen earlier this week, big tech stocks saw large fluctuations. Nvidia, one of Wall Street's most central companies, started out with a gain of more than 4% before it ended on a loss of more than 5%. Supermicro computer stocks tumbled by more than 20% after it reported lower than expected quarterly earnings. Tesla and Meta platforms also slipped, as well as global homestay platform Airbnb. These latest developments were reflected in the South Korean stock market on Thursday, as the country's benchmark Kospi and the secondary Kosdaq both began and ended the day's trading on a low. The Kospi and the Kosdaq closed just under 0.5% lower than the previous day after seeing bigger fluctuations at the start of the trading session. Stocks of chip makers SK Hynix and Samsung Electronics both fell. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
The founder of Kakao Corporation, Kim Beom-soo, has been taken to trial over allegations of stock manipulation. Prosecutors indicted Kim on Thursday under detention on allegations of violating the Capital Markets Act after he had been issued with an arrest warrant 2 weeks ago. The warrant accused him of interfering in stocks for 1 day, but after investigation, he was accused of interfering for 3 other days as well. He is also suspected of failing to report holdings of SM Entertainment by a private equity fund he allegedly colluded with. The allegations come in connection with the acquisition of SM Entertainment last year. Kim is alleged to have manipulated SM's stock price to prevent a takeover by HYBE. Many areas in the country are facing shrinking populations. Among those, Goseong-gun County down in the south has been coming up with ways to counter this problem. Our correspondent Park Gun-woo joins us in the studio. Hi, Gun-woo.
Evening, Jungmin.
Tell us more about this county. What's special about it?
Of course. So it's located in Gyeongsang-namdo province near the south coast and between the cities of Tongyeong and Jinju. And last year, according to official data from the county's office, the population there was over 50,000. But recent data shows that it has fallen below number. As the number of residents is falling, the county has been coming up with ways to prevent the situation from getting worse. So let's take a look at how. Goseong-gun is a county in Gyeongsang-namdo province located in the southern part of the Korean peninsula with less than 50,000 residents. Due to its continuously shrinking population, the region has been coming up with new ways to address the crisis. One of the representative ways is rebranding the county as an optimal spot for sports events and off-season training, with its great facilities and infrastructure, bringing in many athletes from different regions.
Training facilities here are good, especially because this year's National Sports Festival will be held in Goseong, and it's a great opportunity to watch and learn each player's strengths while training.
In the first half of 2024, Goseong-gun County held 41 sports events, including international and national sports competitions, including for triathlon, handball, and soccer. Attracting over 80,000 people during that period, the county created an economic effect worth around $4 million, twice as much as in the previous year. Goseong-gun County calculated the economic effect by multiplying the visitors, athletes, coaches, and families with the predicted average cost of around $54 per day for accommodation and food.
Accommodation costs accounts for the biggest pie among the total spending. Then it will be food costs, as it's important to eat well during off-season training. Food costs are huge as we try to consume meat each meal.
With more people coming into the region, an official of Goseong-gun County spoke about plans to accept the increasing number of visitors.
We will continue to expand the infrastructure for sports facilities. For example, we already built the first baseball stadium in the previous year and the second one in May to welcome more baseball players.
He also spoke about plans for increasing lodging facilities, including youth hostels, so that the county can hold more sports events. Along with these efforts, Goseong-gun County aims to create an economic effect of over $6 million in the latter half of the year. In order to do so, this coastal county aims to bring more people into the region by hosting scores of sports events and off-season training for teams and athletes, as it did in the first half of the year.
Interesting. And can you tell us in more detail how the region will try to achieve that goal?
Yes, so in order to achieve that goal, the county is preparing to, hold these off-season training camps along with 40 more sports events in the latter half of the year. And according to this county, those include the National Sports Festival set to be held in October, and other nationwide competitions including tennis, billiards, and shirim, the Korean national traditional wrestling. Accordingly, the county anticipates an economic effect of around $11 million in this year, with around 4,000 teams and 80,000 athletes visiting Goseong.
And Konu, aside from sports marketing, what else is the county working on?
So as it's also famous for its dinosaur footsteps being discovered in Korea for the first time, Goseong-gun is also preparing to strengthen its tourism content, especially for the annual Dinosaur World Expo set to be held in October.
If we don't change, our region will gradually vanish. Some people feel sick of the expo as there haven't been big changes since it started 18 years ago. Starting from small things, we should keep changing in order to create new things.
The CEO also said they are coming up with various events, including circuses and parades, so that more people can visit. In fact, their goal is to bring over 200,000 visitors to the expo, around 20,000 more than the year before. And he added that creating new attractions will allow the county to become a hub of tourism, which will lead to economic and cultural vitalization, along with more jobs being created.
All right, thanks for your report today, Kanu.
My pleasure.
Over the international front, there's been a rare Ukrainian incursion into Russia's Kursk region. It's been reported as one of the largest incursions into Russia since the war began in 2022. Tae-joon has the latest.
Russia's defense ministry has said that up to 1,000 Ukrainian troops entered Russia near the town of Sudza on Tuesday morning local time. The Ukrainian army began a ground offensive with tanks and armored combat vehicles following missile and drone attacks. A state of emergency was declared, leading to thousands of people evacuating from the Kursk region. The Russian Chief of General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, reported to President Vladimir Putin that Russian forces had halted around 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers with airstrikes, missiles, and artillery fire and pushed them back to the border in a nighttime operation. Gerasimov said that the enemy's losses amounted to 315 people, including at least 100 killed and 215 wounded. 54 armored vehicles, including 7 tanks, were destroyed. President Putin accused Ukraine of launching an unprovoked assault on civilian buildings and residences.
The Kyiv regime has undertaken another large-scale provocation and is conducting indiscriminate shelling with various types of weaponry, including missiles, of civilian buildings, residential buildings, and ambulances.
Ukraine has not commented on the attack, but did announce that it is carrying out a large-scale plan while revealing its infiltration mission into the Kherson area, which is occupied by Russia.
We had hundreds of meetings and talks to strengthen the capabilities of our aviation, to strengthen the capabilities of our air defense system, of our defense forces.
Ukraine has been launching missile attacks on Russia. However, the incursion into the Kursk region by mobilizing infantry is considered to be unusual. This battle in Kursk appears to be one of the largest incursions into Russia since the war began in February 2022. Tae-joon, Arirang News.
Israel has reaffirmed its resolve to hunt down Yahya Sinwar, the man behind the October 7th attack. The remarks follow Hamas's recent tapping of Sinwar as its new militant leader. Choi Min-jung has more.
Israel's military chief of staff has vowed to target the new Hamas leader, Yahya Sinwar. Speaking during a visit to an Air Force base on Wednesday, Lieutenant General Herzi Halavi said the decision to name Sinwar as its new leader will not absolve him from the fact that he is a murderer.
We will make an effort to find him and attack him, and they can replace once again the head of the political bureau.
Sinwar is believed to be the mastermind behind the October 7th attack when Hamas killed more than 1,000 people during an attack on Israel, including citizens from other countries.
Sinwar is a brutal terrorist with blood on his hands, including the blood of American citizens, and not just American citizens, but citizens of many countries around the world.
Israel's attack on Gaza continued despite the change in Hamas's leadership. The Israeli army issued new evacuation orders on Wednesday for Beit Hanun in northern Gaza. This comes as Israel announced it would forcefully and immediately operate against terror groups in the region, following a rocket attack fired from the area. Meanwhile, top Iranian commander Abdulrahim Musavi welcomed the appointment of Sinwar as the new political head of Hamas, calling him a great combatant. He added that the new leadership means that Israel will have to give up hopes of survival and collapse. Hamas on Tuesday chose Sinwar as its new leader after Ismail Haniyeh was killed in Iran last week by a strike which is presumed to have been launched by Israel. Regional tensions have soared after the killing. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
In other news, North Korean athletes at the Paris Olympics have reportedly received Samsung smartphones. This has raised concerns about potential violations of a UN sanction that bans the supply of electronic devices to the regime. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Beom-soo explains.
South Korean table tennis mixed doubles bronze winner Im Jong-hoon holding up a Samsung smartphone and taking selfies with his partner Shin Yu-bin, together with Chinese gold medalists and silver medalists from North Korea. As an official sponsor of the International Olympic Games, Samsung has provided its Paris Olympics edition Galaxy smartphones to the IOC, which the committee distributed to athletes in the French capital. The Galaxy Z Flip 6 Olympic edition has appeared several times, with winning athletes taking selfies using the device at the podium. The gold-colored phone with Olympic rings engraved on the surface has been made exclusively for athletes competing in this Olympics. But concerns rose as Radio Free Asia reported on Wednesday local time that the IOC distributed the phones to athletes from North Korea as well, hinting at the possibility of a violation of a UN Security Council resolution. Resolution 2397, adopted in 2017, prohibits all member countries from supplying, selling, or transferring electrical equipment to North Korea as they can be modified and used for military purposes. An official at the Ministry of Unification said while there's a possibility that the distribution of Samsung smartphones to North Korean athletes may violate the UN Security Council resolutions, it is the IOC that needs to answer those concerns. Samsung Electronics said the distribution is solely up to the IOC and that the company is not involved in the matter. Back in 2018, during the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, Samsung again provided smartphones to the IOC, which were offered to athletes from North Korea with a condition that those athletes return them before going back to the North. North Korean athletes refused to accept the phones at the time. Kim Beom-soo, Arirang News.
The rival parties at the National Assembly have agreed to join forces to push what they call undisputed pieces of legislation affecting people's livelihoods. The chief deputy floor leaders of the ruling People Power Party and the main opposition Democratic Party held talks on Thursday and said they will work to process the livelihood-related bills during the remaining August Assembly. One such bill would be the improvement to the current Nursing Act to outline the roles of physician assistants in medical practices. However, no details have yet been finalized on the potential consultative body between the rival parties and the government, suggested by the party leaderships earlier this week. The South Korean government is set to come up with a comprehensive plan to deal with the rising number of fires sparked by electric vehicles. This is according to the Ministry of Environment on Thursday, saying it will host an emergency meeting of the 12th of this month for relevant government agencies, including the Ministry of Industry and Transport and the National Fire Agency. With more EVs on the road in South Korea, there's been a rise in the number of fires caused by them. In 2021, it was 24 cases, and last year, 72, with the most recent one in the underground parking lot of an apartment complex in Incheon, which damaged more than 140 cars.
Today, the central parts of the country saw repeated rain until the afternoon. Also, showers fell in the south and on Jeju Island. The south will continue to have showers until tonight. Temperatures have risen significantly in the south, with heatwave warnings in place for most parts of the country. As for today, tropical nights have lasted for 18 days in Seoul. Tomorrow morning, the temperature in Seoul is expected to be 26 degrees Celsius after another tropical night. This heat will persist day and night even after Malbok and National Liberation Day. Please drink plenty of water so that you don't get heat-related illnesses. Tomorrow morning will be as hot as today, with most areas exceeding 24 degrees. Highs will move up to 34 in most parts of the country. There will also be the possibility of showers this weekend. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.